Itum, welcome to BizTalk. That's my great pleasure having me today. How are you?
I'm great, and you, Max. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks to you for coming. So let's start talking about your business.
Okay, the business is called gazaataDotCom. It's actually South Africa's first peer-to-peer online lending platform. So it's a similar platform like the guys you have in the US, like the Lending Club. The South African market has not been exposed to such a model. We still rely on traditional banks or credit providers in the country to access credit. So gazaataDotCom is the first peer-to-peer online lending platform that we're launching now in December in South Africa. What we do, we connect individuals who need credit with individuals or companies that are willing to lend out their funds as an investment in personal loans. So we match the right borrower with the right lender. And also the big advantage of having such in South Africa is that, taking into account South Africa's history, there's still a large population group that's being excluded from accessing credit from traditional institutions. So what will this allow? It will allow communities, to act as both lender and borrower within their own environment without really asking for assistance from the banks or from the government. So it can be a community-based marketplace where everyone just goes onto the marketplace, register as either a lender or...
Thank you. Now, let me ask you a few questions. The P2P lending market is very popular at South Africa for sure. It's extremely popular in Europe, in US, and almost all over the world, in Latin America.
Yes, correct.
But for what is my knowledge, is becoming popular in Africa as well, okay? So I've been talking to a few funders who are doing some lending in Africa. I think the last one was in Mozambique. And my question is, how difficult is profiling the borrowers?
Okay.
And also, where exactly are you targeting in Africa? Because Africa is very big.
Okay. At this stage, we're targeting the southern part of Africa. Profiling borrowers, we do have third-party service providers like the big guys like Experian. They are they've got offices here in South Africa. So we use their data to profile all the borrowers. We use their credit scoring API to profile any borrower that registers on our platform.
Now, how does the platform exactly works? How do you connect them? How do you source? And how do you find the right lenders and the right borrowers? How do you approach that?
Okay, with lenders, we've associated ourselves with some associations in the country, like the Microfinance Association of South Africa. This association, it's where all the microcredit providers are registered with. So we are in talks with them to get as many micro lenders to onboard on Gazata. The benefit thereof is that they will save on their overheads, so they don't need to open up multiple branches to try and service their customers. They can just onboard on gazaataDotCom, and then their existing clients and new clients can just apply for the loans online. And we do all the affordability assessments. We do all the pre-vetting. So once a borrower has been pre-vetted, we then list them onto the platform, and any registered lender can then scroll on the platform to find the right borrower that he wants to borrow their money out to.
How do you vet borrowers? What is the, let's say, the system put in place to vetting them, the process?
Yeah, According to our local and National Credit Act or credit regulation, is that we first need to do a credit check, see if they have the necessary credit scoring. And secondly, we need to do an affordability assessment to make sure they can afford the loan that they are applying for. And thirdly, then we do employment background checks to see whether that person is really employed, permanently employed, or what the salaries are. And then what we do on the collections point of view, we do a debit order collection monthly on the borrower's commercial bank account to do the repayments.
When it comes to lenders, you've been talking about more corporations, but you do P2P lending, okay?
Yes.
You have only corporations, banks where they are lending, or also individuals? Because normally P2P is more for individuals.
Yes, so our platform, we open for both either individual or corporates. So when we onboard an individuals, obviously we need to do the necessary KYCs and the anti-money laundering verifications. Once that is passed, then a person can become an active lender onto the platform. The corporations that we are targeting is your smaller micro lenders outside the bank and the big companies, because you do also have unregistered micro lenders in the country, unregistered loan providers, which the government really does not support, because these guys are charging the public exorbitant interest rates that are illegal. So we're trying to also get those guys on board so that they can be regulated and they can register with the necessary authorities in the country.
But after comes the problem of interest rate charging, right? So what's the maximum interest rates can be charged on your platform?
The maximum is 22.5% per annum. And those interest rates are regulated by our local law. Actually, the law allows us to charge up to 27% per annum, but we've made it slightly cheaper for our borrowers. We're only charging 22.5% maximum. What's also interesting is that if you are in South Africa and you apply for a personal loan through a bank, the average interest rate that the bank will charge you is 25.5% that they will charge you currently. So meaning if you apply for a loan through gazaataDotCom, you'll actually get it cheaper as opposed to going to a bank.
You're more convenient.
Yes.
What about the size of the loans?
Okay, at this stage, we're still limited to about 200,000 rands. I just have to double check what it will be in dollar terms, but it's quite fairly short-term loans up to about 36 months repayment period.
And the maximum repayment is 6 months?
36 months.
86 months.
36 months, yes.
Okay, 36, all right, 3 years.
Yes.
What about now? Your platform is not a lending platform, okay? You host both sides and they lend each other, okay?
Yes.
So you are the middleman in this case.
Correct.
Now, how do you make money?
So we charge a 7% once-off transaction fee on every loan application that's been approved. And then we also charge the lender when we do the monthly collections of the loan. We also charge the lender a 2% of every successful collection that we make.
Okay, so you charge the lender and you charge the borrowers.
Borrower, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What about the regulation? How does it work in South Africa? How strict is the regulation, and how long is this process if you already have all licenses in place? Okay.
Luckily enough, currently in South Africa, crowdfunding platforms are not regulated per se. What's regulated is the lender. So if you want to be a lender in South Africa, you have to register with our local national credit regulator. And then that registration process takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get any lender registered. It's not a complicated process. Anyone can register with the national regulator. So that's the current law that we have to abide by.
You don't need the regulation, you don't need to be licensed as a platform.
No, not yet. There's no regulation at this stage to regulate crowdfunding platforms.
And what about if you have private lenders which are not regulated on your platform?
Say that again, sorry.
If you have private lenders, okay, unregulated lenders, what's going to happen? You can check them.
We can check them, but to onboard a lender that's unregistered, we also offer that service in-house where we help these guys register, because we can only onboard lenders that are registered. So if any of our users is not registered, we take them through the registration process first, and then we enlist them onto the platform as a registered lender.
Let's say a net worth individual come to your platform because you want to use your platform to make some money out of his money. How does the process work? How does the process going to work now?
Yeah, we obviously do the necessary KYCs, any AML verifications, and we need to collect the Africa documents to then pass it through to the national credit regulator to get them registered.
Okay, so they become regulated.
Yes, they become accredited.
Regulated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What's the stage of the platform now?
We are still at the startup stage. Fortunately, we have managed to source the software from a UK-based company. So we are now busy trying to get lenders registered on the platform.
Okay, the launch is done in South Africa, and what's next after?
Yeah, we're hoping to look at other African countries, sub-Saharan African countries. So we're looking at Botswana, we're looking at Zimbabwe, we're looking at Zambia. And then at a later stage, we look at going more north in the African continent.
Okay, how different is the market in, let's say, South Africa, okay? How different from one country to another? There's a huge difference, which means you had to develop new tools, right, to make sure that the repayment is done, okay? And yes, there are not too many defaults.
Yes. Fortunately, most of the African countries at this stage, they do have that debit order facility to collect the repayments. The difference is that some of the market don't have access maybe to internet, for example, or don't have smartphones to start borrowing and lending on their phones. But other larger companies like Kenya, I mean, they are fourth runners when it comes to digital money or technology. So we have to pick the countries that we want to expand to very carefully. It must be a country that has a consistent internet connectivity, and the market in that country should have access to smartphones for them to transact.
Yeah, that was my next question. I suppose the majority are going to use a platform with smartphones, right?
Yes, it's a web-based platform.
So internet is going to be a big deal, and also all the infrastructure around it, which yes, is, I suppose, Africa is actually, South Africa is very well done when it comes to infrastructures. It's very different from North Africa.
Correct, yeah.
And do you have an idea one day to go to North Africa, which is pretty different?
Yes, we hope to maybe go north, maybe to Nigeria. We look at Rwanda. Rwanda is developing very rapidly at this stage. And then we look at maybe Egypt, the Nima region.
Okay. And it's very common now to talk about decentralized finance, DeFi, crypto, blockchain. What's your point of view? Are you going to use this technology one day?
Yes, no, definitely. We hope to use that technology one day. As it gaining momentum in many of the African countries, the youth understand the technology much better than the older guys. So you get a lot of guys that are investing in Bitcoins, they're using cryptocurrencies and all of that. There's definitely a market for maybe P2P.
What's your going to market strategy? I mean, how do you target your borrowers and as well your lenders?
At this stage, we associate ourselves with the industry stakeholders. Like I mentioned, the Microfinance Institute of South Africa. We also have what they call a National Stokvel Association in South Africa. What it is, it's an association where it's an informal investment association. So the guys, the communities have formed sort of an association where they would invest or put together money informally. And then they would either lend it to each other or they would save it up for December time. So we're trying to get those associations also on board to start using the platform because they're currently doing it. It's not recorded or it's not digitized. It's done informally. So if we can give them that platform to use and formalize the relationships that they currently have.
I was talking to these guys, I think it was North Africa, developing this application for very small credit, okay? Which is, I suppose, almost like yours because it was something like $100, which probably more or less very, very close to your size or any something similar. They were developing soft and hard rules when it comes to, giving some credit score, okay? For example, they were looking at your phone and see which people actually are around you as your neighbors, where you live, where you don't live, understanding if you are part of, let's say, higher society than lower society, okay? This is not for discrimination, just for understanding if you can pay back the money or not. Are you going to use some soft skills in your technology?
Yes, we do have the technology already for alternative data collection. So how it also works is that if a borrower comes on board and applies for a loan, either a work colleague or a neighbor or a family member or a community member can go onto the platform and write comments about that borrower. They can either vouch for them to say, hey, we know Itumeleng. Itumeleng has been running this small business for 20 years. He now wants to expand. I can vouch for him. And it can go as far as the person vouching for that borrower can also pledge their own money to invest in that person that they're vouching for. So what that helps is that other lenders get more comfortable then to put their money on that specific borrower.
Okay. So are you going to have any long-term loan or you will stay between the 12 and the 36 months?
At this stage, we're going to stay at the 12 and the 36 months. And at the later stage, as we expand, we can look at longer term.
Okay. What about, are you under fundraising now?
Yes, we are under fundraising. We are speaking to a local company. It's looking good so far, but the negotiations have not been concluded as yet.
And how much are you raising now?
We're trying to raise about $530,000 to expand the platform through the entire South African country.
And so what's going to be the use of the funds? Technology, marketing, sales?
Yes, it will be definitely technology, it will be marketing, it will be operations and sales.
Okay. Now, you're an entrepreneur, so you know better than me, being an entrepreneur is not always a funny day. It can be a very tough day. And what I like to ask to funders is not what make them happy, because you dream to succeed, and this is already enough to be happy when you wake up in the morning. But what does make you sleeping at night? What's your concern? Where do you think you can fail more than you can win? Because if we know where to fail, it's much easier not to fail than when you know what you can win, but you have no idea where it's going to be the failure. Okay.
Yeah. I think it will come with the repayments from the borrowers, because it's entirely online. That gives some of the borrowers an edge to say, these people don't know me. So if I don't pay them, where they're going to find me? So there's always that attitude amongst some of the borrowers that we've come across. So we need to look at that very closely, and that vouching mechanism, getting other people to vouch for the borrower, I think it will help us, because the more people comment on that particular borrower, the better, because we'll have their contact details. If one borrower disappears on us, we have a list of other contacts that we can trace the individual.
Well, lending and collecting, they are very close to each other.
Yeah.
So if someone doesn't pay, what's going to happen?
Okay, with our local laws allows us to blacklist that borrower in all major credit bureau companies, and they are given a certain number of days to either repay the loan. The next stage would be us then to take them through the legal process, where we apply for a judgment at the court of law, and then that judgment gets listed on the borrower's credit profile. The next stage would be then the last stage, where you apply at the court to get a court order and repossess some of the borrower's assets.
What about technology? Is everything in-house? You told me you've been working with a software house in UK, okay?
Yes.
What's the stage of the IP? Belongs everything to you? Do you have developers in-house? Everything is outsourced?
No, at this stage, we're using a white label platform, and we pay a subscription to the UK company, but we have an option of buying the source code outright at a later stage.
So do you think one day you're going to manage all the tech inside in-house, or you want always using outsourcing?
No, I think we want to manage all the tech in-house once we've understood the technology correct, and once all our users have also become comfortable using the technology. So we want to source everything in-house at the later stage.
I do believe for fast development and for better understanding, even the customer journey, okay, actually how to better improve it, having the tech in-house is very important.
Correct, yes.
Daily job, and as well, I do believe technology, sales, marketing, they need to be together, especially when it comes to the first stage, okay? When the company is still a baby, they need to talk to each other, okay? The tech, if they do not know the problem, can find a solution, right? And because you're a tech-enabled company, technology matters so much. So as soon as you can, I really recommend you to have enough money. I know how expensive it is. It can be very expensive to bring technology inside.
Yeah.
You start from outside. That's fine. That's fine.
So
but after bringing.
Yeah. So part of the funds that we are trying to raise is a budget there to get the technology hosted in-house.
Yeah, it's very important. Absolutely. Now, what's your vision? You need to have a vision, right? What's the mission? And the mission is pretty clear. What's your vision for
My
the
vision,
company?
yeah, my vision is for the company is, to help marginalized communities around Africa to access alternative credit. I mean, looking at the history of the entire African continent, besides South Africa on its own, there's a huge number of individuals or even entrepreneurs, small business owners that can't access credit through traditional means. And I'll give you a typical example. I grew up in a village where there's been this one taxi driver that would take us to school, from high school days right through college. And the same taxi driver is still driving the same taxi to this day, 20 years later. And then you ask yourself, how can this individual expand and buy a second taxi or third taxi? And individuals like us, we were lucky enough to get a formal education. So if we can give back to that community, because this guy has already proved himself that he can run a taxi business, we can always lend out to him so that he can buy a second taxi or third taxi or something like that. So my passion or my vision is really want to help that marginalized community to prosper and not rely on government.
That's a great vision. The private sector should run the economy much more than the public sector. That's my opinion. Yeah. And a private sector economy runs well. Okay, it's functioning much better than when it's too much public. Let me. You are in between finance inclusion and finance has, by definition, okay. So how do you balance? I mean, somehow you need to help the community. That's where the inclusion comes. On the other hand, you need to make some money, right? Running your business. How you do balance? It's not always easy balancing inclusion with the more traditional finance, which is pretty, let's say, made for profit, right?
Yeah. It's definitely not easy, but I believe when you have the passion of assisting other individuals, the monetary part of it then becomes secondary. We are hoping to get enough lenders on board that will see the vision that we see, or that will share the same passion that we have. If we've got enough lenders registering on our platform, then the business should be sustainable.
You're raising funds. What's your message to investors? What they should invest in gazaataDotCom and in yourself? Because in the end of the day, an early startup is investing in persons, in people, and not in company.
Yeah. I would say my team and I have got the passion to assist the guys on the ground. And what's most important is that we understand our market better, because we grew up in these villages, we grew up in this environment. So we know exactly how the target market problems are. We know exactly how they think. We know exactly how we could assist them. So that's a big competitive advantage as opposed to an international company coming to South Africa and trying to do the same, because they don't understand the person that they're trying to help on the ground.
How do they exit? Do you have an idea how your investors one day can exit from investing in your company?
We probably would get recognition from other big players, P2P players, big players out there that want to enter the African market. So we probably get bought out by one of the big players that want a footprint in Africa.
And my last question is, how do you scale up your business? How do we make your business growing substantially, okay? And be one day a very big player, at least in Africa, even not outside Africa?
It's to get the word out. We need to educate both lenders and borrowers in the African continent that there is now such technology that exists. Because at this stage, many of the target market don't know about peer-to-peer lending. So we really need to do a lot of marketing to get people to try out the platform. And I'm quite confident if they try it once off, there'll definitely be repeat lenders and repeat borrowers onto the platform. So we really need to get the word out there. We really need to talk about the positive of peer-to-peer lending, what it will do for their communities and what it could do for the entire country without having the government promising or giving empty promises. We as a community can start building our own economies without relying on the government.
Itu, thank you very much for coming to BizTalk. It's been a very great pleasure for me having you, and I really wish you all the best for your startup and a great success in the future to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, much appreciated for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Have a good day. Take care.